Let's talk about those dire consequences. You made news this week reporting that there are cases of sexual abuse at the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas, that houses right now more than 1,600 children. But the head of a nonprofit that provides legal services to immigrants said this: the only reason why Abbott is now acting like he cares about the children in these facilities is for political reasons. Governor, there were thousands of complaints of sexual abuse at migrant shelters during the Trump years. Not to say that what's going on now is right, but we couldn't find one instance of you complaining and calling that out when President Trump was president.
Sure. There are multiple differences between what happened in the Trump administration and what is happening now. First, the Trump administration remained in constant communication with me and with my office and let us know what was going on. Second, I saw reports about exactly what you're talking about and saw that those reports were filed with federal agencies. The one that I talked about earlier this past week were reports that were filed with state agencies, the Texas Health and Human Services Commission and the Department of Protective and Child Services, which is basically Child Protective Services. And so we have a duty to respond to any complaint about child sexual abuse in Texas, as well as to investigate it. And that's exactly what I did to make sure it was addressed.
Add one more topic to the list of items that Republicans suddenly realized outraged them, despite not managing to say a single word during the Trump era about it. This is Texas Governor Greg Abbott getting called out for his blatant hypocrisy in condemning the treatment of unaccompanied migrant children now, despite his complete and total silence on the same topic when a Republican president was in office. The issue presented itself after Abbott gave a press conference outside a shelter for unaccompanied migrant kids this past week, where he called for more oversight and an investigation into reports of sexual abuse at the San Antonio, Texas facility.
Coliseum in San Antonio behind me. These problems are a byproduct of President Biden's open border policies and the lack of planning for the fallout from those disastrous policies. Complaints that were sent to these state agencies include the following four things. Children at this facility are being sexually assaulted. Second, there are not enough staff to safely supervise the children at this facility. Third, some children in this facility are not eating throughout the day. And fourth, children with COVID are not being physically separated from children without COVID. In short, this facility is a health and safety nightmare. The Biden administration is now presiding over the abuse of children. To end this abuse, the Biden administration must immediately shut down this facility. The Biden administration caused this crisis and has repeatedly failed to address it. The Biden administration opened borders. The administration failed to plan for the influx of children that they invited to come. Now they face allegations of despicable child abuse and neglect. This must end. The Biden administration must act now.
Now, I should mention first and foremost that the only zero tolerance policy with regard to immigration should not have been separating kids from their parents. It should have been making sure that any abuse, sexual or otherwise, doesn't occur. Not in the Obama administration, not in the Trump administration, and not in the Biden administration, period. I don't care if a Democrat or a Republican is in the White House. If there are any substantiated reports of sexual abuse anywhere and the government knows about it, if that situation isn't rectified immediately, that's on the federal and state officials overseeing those facilities. And according to officials now, this very issue is being investigated, as it should be. But the issue that Chris Wallace brings up here is the same sentiment echoed by other critics, and that is that there was was no such righteous indignation from Greg Abbott when thousands of instances of sexual abuse were occurring at similar facilities for years during the Trump era. And even despite a pledge to reform state agencies in Texas with long histories of abuse, still those problems persist under Abbott's leadership. And none of this is to say that the abuse itself shouldn't be investigated, but when the messenger is someone with a long history of ignoring these exact issues, then it's a testament to the fact that this isn't about the kids, it's about politics. Meaning that he not only ignored the issues of sexual assault for the last 4 years, but he's now exploiting those same kids as political props now that it's convenient for him. And by the way, even those who are overwhelmingly sympathetic to the migrant children recognize that. Jonathan Ryan, the CEO of Races, a nonprofit that provides legal services to immigrants, said in a statement that, quote, "The only reason why Abbott is now acting like he cares about the children in these facilities is for political reasons. What the governor wants is for the Biden administration to stop allowing children to seek home and safety in this country. That is not the solution to the challenge we have in front of us. We must ensure the children are released as soon as possible and be reunited with their families in the US." If even the apolitical organization whose only goal is to protect immigrants can so easily see Abbott's hypocrisy, it doesn't seem like his pearl clutching was especially persuasive. Now, in terms of this interview with Chris Wallace, Abbott's excuses are exactly as tenuous as you'd imagine. He says that one reason he failed to utter a single word about the abuse of immigrant children in facilities during the Trump era was that the Trump administration let him know what was going on. In other words, he's not really upset about the abuse, he's only upset that he's not in the chain of command now to have been informed about the abuse. Like, come on, if you were really against the abuse, wouldn't the issue be the abuse itself instead of who tells him about it? Of course, and that's a testament to the fact that it's not the abuse that bothers Abbott, it's that there's a Democrat in the White House. And so the exact same topic that he couldn't manage to utter a single word about during the last 4 years is suddenly, 2 months into Biden's administration, proof that the sky is falling down. Right. He then goes on to defend himself by claiming that all of those thousands of reports of sexual abuse during the Trump era had been filed with federal agencies, and so clearly he wasn't in a position to say a word about them. But these most recent reports were filed with state agencies, and so now, suddenly his muzzle has been lifted, and Governor Abbott can finally say what he's so obviously been vying to say for so long, only he couldn't because the reports weren't filed with the appropriate agency. That is actually the excuse that he expects you to believe. I guess the governor of the state of Texas forgot about his First Amendment right to free speech, and that if something like child abuse was so clearly bothering him during the Trump years, he was still free to speak out about it. It's the fact that he didn't that shows exactly how he felt. So look, 2 things can be true here. First, migrant children should be kept safe, and our government at all levels should take any and every steps humanly possible to ensure that that's the case. But 2, the politicians who cheered on the last president while he committed crimes against humanity with regard to immigrants are the last people who should be parading themselves on national TV and pretending that there's some sort of moral authority on this topic. If they wanted to be taken seriously, they had 4 years of child separation, of child abuse, of dehumanizing rhetoric, of unsafe conditions to condemn. And yet if they chose to stay silent during that time, like Texas Governor Greg Abbott did, then he doesn't have a leg to stand on now, a few weeks into Biden's term, when he suddenly found a conscience when it comes to migrant children. To see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell. And please subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I not only break down the biggest stories of the week, but I also interview major players in the world of politics, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, Jamie Raskin, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.